So when I'm helping my clients downsize to a condo, I know my clients often have specific criteria. And every time I talk to you, you always have so many interesting stories. Do you have any interesting stories from downsizing from a house to a condo?
Always. In fact,
I thought you might.
I've written books on divorce and selling your home, downsizing and selling your home. But my next book, the title's going to be You Can't Make This Shit Up, because there's no joke. There's so many. So
It's going to be a bestseller.
it's going to be a bestseller. So like you said, when people are buying a condo for the first time, they really don't know what to look for, what to ask, and they rely on, good realtors like you and me. And when people are downsizing, if they're, and they're empty nesters, they usually have a little bit more insight. But what are they looking at? They're looking at the size, the layout, the decor, what they might want to redecorate. If they've done their research, they'll remember to look at the view. And I mean, there's so much I've written about in my books about what to look for when buying a condo. But here's I forget your question, but was it the craziest thing I've seen or the most unbelievable thing?
Yes.
So this one was a true story. I mean, everything I say is true. It didn't happen to me, but it's such a good answer to your question. I'm going to share it. It happened to another colleague of ours, a realtor who's quite accomplished, quite successful, been in the business longer than you and I.
Mm-hmm.
And so this realtor had some downsizing clients, sold their, they were fortunate enough to acquire a high net worth.
Mm-hmm.
And so sold their $6 million home. They were buying a multi-million-dollar condo, and they were fortunate enough, I don't share people's incomes, but the point of the story is they had multiple vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
And so every time they went to see condos, and then they went back for buyer visits after they had put an offer in on a condo they liked, they always came in as Porsche 911, which, nice car, but it sits low to the ground.
That's right.
And they close the deal, they get the keys to their new beautiful condo, and they decide to bring from their old house to their new condo his large SUV. I don't remember, but I think the agent said it was either a Range Rover or a Cadillac Escalade, so a large SUV.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't go into the underground. Too tall for the overhead door.
Oh, no.
And, you and I, we're always learning. I mean, nobody knows everything. And I had to admit, when I heard that story, that's not something I would ever think to check.
No, you know what? And I'm sure a lot of real estate agents don't think about the size of the car and is it going to fit under the underground or fit in the parking spot. So that is a really good point to bring up.
Something else that you and I have talked about previously is we as good Canadians and just human nature, we don't ever want to pry or get into somebody's personal business if it doesn't apply to what we're doing, the real estate. So we would never, to this very point, if you were my client, I would say, Dana, what kind of cars do you have?
Yeah.
None of my business.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, it is.
Absolutely.
So, lesson learned is you may not say what kind of cars you have, but one of the lessons I've learned when people are buying a condo, either I will check, the height of the overhead door to the garage, or I might just say, when we're doing our, due diligence, let's make sure all of your vehicles fit. So that was one of the craziest things in fact, just FYI, I think you and probably anybody who sees this video will find this interesting. The buyer, being of high net worth and high power, decided to sue the agent.
Wow.
And lost. And I'll tell you why, because I followed this whole case. And the reason is because if the buyer, so great lesson here for realtors and buyers alike, if the buyer said, by the way, Dana, I also have a Cadillac Escalade, we need to make sure it fits. Mm-hmm. And the realtor said, oh yeah, it'll fit, no problem. And it didn't. The realtor would have been at fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, the realtor would be liable. But we can't be expected to ask every kind of personal, confidential question conceivable to mankind if it doesn't usually apply or the buyer doesn't share it. So in this case, there was no email or written evidence that the buyer advised the realtor that they had other vehicles that were oversized. So, but it's something I would look out for anytime a client's buying a condo.
Absolutely. It's a really good point, and I will going forward as well.
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking.
Yes, thank you for sharing.